About 25 years ago I started a tradition in my family, and this tradition is that I bake an Easter bread. This Easter bread, we call it Osterzopf, is braided and it's very delicious. I haven't met anyone who didn't like it. It's very, very good, especially if you bake it fresh. So I bake it in the morning on Easter Sunday before we have our Easter brunch. My ingredients today are 500 grams of flour. I have 2 eggs and 1 egg white. The egg yolk I will need later to glaze my bread. I also have some sugar. This is 75 grams of sugar. The original recipe asked for 50 grams, but you know, I have a sweet tooth, so if you are more on the sweet side just like me, I would recommend you use a little more. Then I have a pinch of salt. I have a package of dry yeast. I have some of my homemade vanilla sugar. The recipe is on my blog. And I also, since I really like vanilla and the taste in this Easter bread is a little bit like vanilla, I will also add a little bit of my vanilla paste. Also, I have some warm cream, and I wanted to say something about the temperature here. So in general, if you bake a bread with yeast and you use a warm liquid for it, it depends on the temperature of your liquid how the taste of your bread will turn out. So for this one, I don't really want the bread to taste too much like bread, so I want to taste it more like the vanilla. So for that reason I use a warmer temperature. If I use a lower temperature for like rye bread, that means that it takes longer for the dough to proof, and this time that is added to adds also to the taste of the bread. So in this case I would recommend use cream that's about 100 degrees warm, and if you bake a bread, you should definitely use a little cooler liquid. Okay, so I will start and just pour this into my bowl, and I add the flour, all of it, and where's my spoon? Yes. So I make a little mold here, I add the sugar, I add some of my vanilla sugar and a little bit of my vanilla extract, or maybe a little bit more. Okay, then I also add the eggs. And of course, also, I need a scissor for this, also the dry yeast. You can also use fresh yeast, but apparently it's really hard for everyone to get fresh yeast, so I just use this, so you know it's one package. I will not add the salt yet, because salt and yeast, they don't really like each other, so I add the pinch of salt just a little later. Let me first mix this a little bit. Okay, so this is just a short mix. You can see it doesn't have a lot of elasticity yet, so I add a pinch of salt now and turn it back on, and I knead it now for 5 minutes. Let me take a look at this dough. Yeah, it looks very smooth, very nice, and it feels warm. It's a good dough, and like always with the yeast doughs, this has to proof now until it has doubled its size. For that I will cover it with my wax cover, which I like really very much. And let me zoom out a little bit. Okay. So I really like this wax cover, and I put it at a warm place now, and when it's doubled its size I will continue with braiding this bread so that it looks very delicious and very nice. While this dough was proofing, I was at the gym, so if I look a little bit worn down, that's why. It's not the dough, it's not the cooking. And while I was gone, you can see this is quite large, and I will carefully get it out of my bowl and give it a short and quick knead by hand. And it has a very good texture still. It's not sticky, at least not more than it's supposed to be. Still, I need a little flour, just slightly. All right. Oh, this feels really good. Very smooth. Very nice. So there are different ways that I can braid this now, and I'd sometimes just braid it and make a wreath with it, and sometimes I make a long bread, and sometimes I make a bread that has a double braid, basically. So a braid and with a braid on top. So what's it gonna be today? Let me think. I think I will make a double braid because it really looks beautiful, and I want you to see how I do it. So I take about a third of my dough and put it aside, and then I use the other 2/3, and I probably have to wait a little because the dough is a little bit stressed from the kneading, and you see it goes back into its previous shape, and it's not keeping the shape that I'm trying to give it here. Let me show you again. So if that happens to your dough, that means that you have to let it rest for like 5 to 10 minutes, and then you can work with it. Okay, so let's see if the resting was long enough. Yeah, I think it's good enough. I'm a little bit in a rush. I have a meeting in like 20 minutes. Okay, no problem. So I will try something new today. Usually I make 3 strands and then I braid it just like I braid my daughter's hair or my own hair. Well, when it was still longer than it's now. But I saw recently something on Pinterest, a different way to braid it, and I kind of like that idea, and I want to try that today. Let's hope that works out. Okay, so I have 1 long strand now, and what I'm doing is I make like a long, oh, it's still not, I think I want it a little longer. Okay, let's see. Okay, that looks better. So I make like an O, like this here, okay, and then I take this strand and I pull it through here, and then I twist this, bring this back in, pull it under here. Well, there's not enough space to twist it another time, but that's basically what I've seen, and I think it looks a lot neater than what I usually do, so I really like that. Let me put this aside and do the same thing with the third of my dough that I put aside. So this has already rested while I was preparing the first part. All right, let's do this again. So I pull this here, put it under, get this through. I twist this, put this through here, and yeah, looks very cute. Okay, let me put this on the baking sheet now. So I first take this one, and now I make a little bit of an indentation here. And you remember the egg yolk that I had earlier? I mixed it with a little bit of milk, and now I use this to brush it onto my Easter bread. This will give it a very nice color. And it also helps me stick the two parts together. Okay, here we go. So now this comes on top of the first braid, and this makes it look really, really nice later. And I brush this too. And now this has to proof again for 20 to 30 minutes. It should be significantly larger than it is now. And once it has proofed enough, I will put it in the oven and bake it, and then later show you the result.